The quarantine chamber hummed with a low, ambient vibration, a sound somewhere between a refrigerator and an ancient, dying cello. Inside, Arundel sat cross-legged on a metal bench, arms folded, nose red, eyes watery, and very clearly annoyed. "Seriously," he said, voice muffled by the surgical mask they'd insisted he wear. "It's just a cold." Across the transparent barrier, the alien scientist Dr. Vierks tilted his elongated head with a twitch of his upper eye ridge. His form was humanoid enough, but coated in a thin sheen of iridescent scales. He wore a sealed biosuit, despite being separated from Aaron by 3 inches of reinforced glass. "You are emitting particulate matter from your oral and nasal orifices at a rate 3 times above baseline," Vierks said. "You are symptomatic. Fatigue, nasal congestion, elevated temperature. These are signs of class 4 viral dissemination." Aaron wiped his nose with a tissue. "It's the common cold. Rhinovirus happens every year, sometimes twice." "You want to run a test, be my guest, but I'm telling you I'm not contagious anymore. You were sneezing 12 minutes ago." "Because I breathed in dust," Aaron said. "This room is dry." Vierks made a series of notes into a floating tablet. "Human physiology continues to perplex our virology division. You are infected and yet, you are requesting to return to duty?" "Well, yeah," Aaron said. "I've got reports to finish. 2 sensor arrays need recalibrating and your crew's still struggling with the drone uplinks." The alien blinked all 3 eyes. "You are not incapacitated." "No," Aaron said, standing up. "I'm irritated. You quarantined me for a cold." "I had worse in high school and still showed up for finals." Vierks gestured and the door hissed open. "You are cleared for limited movement under observation." "Thanks," Aaron muttered, stepping into the corridor. "Next time, maybe ask before assuming I'm dying." The science vessel Ralvatrix had been in orbit around Jupiter's moon Europa for 3 weeks now, part of a joint exploration mission between Earth's Interstellar Research Union and the Xaltheen Concorde. Aaron was the lead systems engineer from Earth, responsible for integrating human-made tech into the alien ship's infrastructure. What none of the Xaltheen had anticipated was how casually humans treated illness. That morning, Aaron had sneezed during a calibration meeting. 4 Xaltheen had leapt backward like he'd pulled a grenade pin with his teeth. Within an hour, he'd been medically isolated. Now, as he walked through the narrow, bioluminescent corridors, he passed a pair of Xaltheen engineers who gave him a 10-foot buffer space, speaking through headsets instead of in person. One of them, a pale green technician named Kylex, held a disinfectant sprayer the way a human might hold holy water in front of Dracula. Aaron gave them a tired wave. "Good morning. Please do not expel fluids," Kylex said. "I'll try not to bleed on anything, thanks." He made his way to the drone bay where a human biologist, Evelyn Ames, was hunched over a diagnostic console. She looked up as he entered. "Hey," she said, "you look like hell." "Appreciate the honesty," Aaron said, sitting heavily on a crate. "You hear about the whole quarantine thing? Who didn't? They thought you had a bioweapon in your lungs. You know they called a level 3 containment alert." I sneezed twice. Evelyn chuckled. "They're really freaked out by human pathogens. Did you know their immune systems can't handle mutation rates above 0.5%? They've never dealt with something like the flu. Let alone a cold," Aaron said. "You know what Vierks asked me? If I'd made peace with my loved ones." Evelyn snorted. "No way. I wish I was kidding." A klaxon blared overhead and Kylex's voice came through the intercom. "Unscheduled biological event detected in Med Lab 2. All crew avoid sector until further notice." Aaron and Evelyn exchanged glances. "Unscheduled biological event," Aaron said. "That sounds like someone spilled soup on the microscope." But when they arrived at Med Lab 2, they found 2 Xaltheen doctors standing stiffly outside the sealed door. Through the viewing window, a 3rd alien lay on a table, twitching. His skin had gone a dull gray. Charts on the wall showed erratic spike lines. "What happened?" Evelyn asked. Technician Raller was exposed to a sample from your nasal swab, one of the doctors said. We attempted viral sequencing. The containment chamber failed. Aaron's mouth opened. Wait, you tried to sequence my cold virus. It began replicating upon contact with Xaltheen cell cultures, the doctor said. His metabolic rate has tripled. Internal temperature is rising. You didn't think to test that in a synthetic medium first, Evelyn said. We assumed your virus was low threat. Aaron stepped back from the glass. You've got to get his temp down. Use saline cooling. Try acetaminophen analogs. Do you even have fever-reducing medication? We have no frame of reference for this type of infection. Aaron turned to Evelyn. I need to get to the med kit in our lab. You're still under observation, the Xaltheen doctor warned. We're wasting time, Aaron said, already moving. 15 minutes later, he returned with an emergency pack containing portable refrigeration gel packs, bulk aspirin, and a few vials of broad-spectrum antivirals. He wasn't a virologist, but he'd played field medic enough times in the Andes to know how to treat fever. Inside the lab, with the alien's heart rate still spiking, Aaron carefully applied cooling packs along the spine and under the arms. Evelyn monitored vitals while the Xaltheen doctors hovered, unsure whether to intervene or run. You're sure this is safe? One asked. For you, Aaron said. I have no idea for him. It's this or organ failure. They waited. 10 minutes passed. The alien's breathing began to slow. Color returned to his skin, shifting from ash back to a light blue. Evelyn exhaled. He's stabilizing. The doctor looked at Aaron, incredulous. You administered a treatment without full biological compatibility data. Aaron wiped his forehead. I administered first aid. I didn't run a clinical trial. That evening, Vierk summoned Aaron back to the command chamber. The atmosphere was heavy, formal. A dozen Xaltheen lined the walls, their expressions unreadable. You exposed our crew to a virus, Vierk said. You took my mucus and injected it into someone, Aaron said. You skipped like 10 steps of protocol. The point remains. Your species carries pathogens for which we have no defense, Aaron nodded. We've been saying that since first contact. That's why we asked for shared medical libraries before we boarded. Vierks paused. We reviewed your medical data extensively. But there is a note in your database that troubled our analysts. It refers to this virus as common. It is, Aaron said. It's a cold. People get it, they work through it, maybe take a day off, sometimes not even that. You continue functioning while infected? Yes. Because our immune systems handle it. Vierks looked down at his hands. One of our researchers has entered induced stasis to prevent further deterioration. Another is recovering after your intervention. You call this minor? To us it is, Aaron said. But not because it's harmless. Because we've adapted. We've had to. Our planet bombards us with bacteria, viruses, allergens, parasites. You don't survive Earth by being delicate. The room was silent. Vierks finally said, You are more resilient than we understood. We're also more reckless than we should be, Aaron admitted. But we don't ignore a problem just because it's common. We learn to deal with it. Later that night, Aaron sat alone in the observation deck, sipping tea. His nose still ran. His head ached. But outside the viewport, Jupiter loomed massive and impossible. Evelyn joined him, dropping into the seat beside his. You know, she said, you might have just set back interstellar diplomacy by 10 years. Why's that? They're terrified of us now. Aaron sniffed. Imagine when they find out we go to work with the flu. Kylek stood rigidly outside Aaron's workspace, holding a containment scanner like it might explode. The scanner beeped once, then fell silent. It hadn't picked up any viral residue in the past 5 minutes, but Kylex's posture said he still didn't trust it. Inside, Aaron was on his back under a diagnostics panel, elbow deep in wiring that refused to behave. His voice echoed faintly upward. I said you could come in. Protocol suggests a wait period of 72 hours post-exposure, Kylex replied, not moving. I've been cleared by your own med staff. You want to stand there and hope the drone relays self-repair. Or you want to let me finish reconnecting your uplink before the next telemetry window slams shut. Kylex hesitated, then took one stiff step forward, stopping just inside the threshold. I have adjusted your access clearance for the maintenance deck. Do not touch the environmental controls. Noted, Aaron muttered, tugging on a fiber optic bundle. Tell me something, Kylex. You ever have a virus evolve while you were sequencing it? That is not standard. Our viruses do not mutate at that rate. I figured, Aaron said. You guys built your immune systems on a stable biosphere. Earth's doesn't play fair. We've got bugs that change every season just to keep us guessing. Kylex tilted his head. You seem to regard this with tolerance. Aaron slid out from under the panel, wiping his hands. It's not tolerance. It's insurance. You get sick, you build antibodies. Next time you're ready, eventually you stop panicking and start planning ahead. Kylex looked vaguely disturbed. You consider disease a training mechanism. More like a recurring workshop, Aaron said, standing. You learn to live with it. Or you don't last long. The scanner on Kylex's wrist chirped twice. He glanced at it, then slowly lowered the device. Your presence no longer registers as hazardous. Told you, Aaron said. Now let's reboot the comms buffer before your data relay decides to reroute telemetry through the waste processing grid again. 2 hours later, the ship's primary uplink blinked green across all systems. Kylex watched the data stream normalize, his long fingers twitching slightly over the controls. You repaired the system without diagnostic support, he said. I've worked with worse, Aaron replied, setting down his toolkit. You ever patch a broadband relay in a snowstorm with frozen fingers and a raccoon chewing your power line? I have not encountered raccoons. Lucky you. There was a pause. Your earlier intervention with Technician Raller, Kylex said, was not standard protocol, it was improvisational. You say that like it's a bad thing. It is not typically safe, Aaron shrugged. Neither is waiting for perfect data while someone's crashing. Sometimes you have to make a call. Kylex stared at him. You make split-second medical decisions under stress. Yeah, Aaron said. Sometimes with duct tape. Later that cycle, Aaron was called to the medical wing again, not for treatment, but for consultation. A Xaltheen named doctor. Normal, tall even by their species standards and with skin that shimmered faintly like oil on water, gestured toward a display filled with unfamiliar cellular diagrams. We have isolated protein markers from your rhinovirus, Norrell said. Our systems are attempting to categorize the immune response it triggers in Xaltheen biology. The results are inconsistent. Aaron leaned in. You're getting different reactions across individuals? Correct. Technician Raller responded with systemic inflammation. Researcher Thill exhibited synaptic overactivity. And somehow Pilot Virat developed temporary photophobia and reported vivid auditory hallucinations. Aaron blinked. Wait, you're telling me he started seeing spots and hearing things? Correct. I've heard of cold symptoms messing with perception, sure, but that's usually due to fever or dehydration. Did you check Vit D levels? Electrolyte balance. We did not consider nutrient imbalance as a factor. Aaron rubbed his forehead. You guys really don't get sick much, do you? Pathogens are rare in our culture, Norrell said. We eliminated most biological transmission vectors centuries ago. You've got tech to prevent illness, but no experience dealing with it when it breaks through. Precisely. Aaron studied the charts. Mind if I take a crack at this? You are not a medical professional. I'm a guy with a working immune system who's had this virus 30, maybe 40 times. Trust me, you're not going to get good data unless you include human immune response as a comparative baseline. Norrell hesitated, then stepped aside. All right, start with hydration levels, then check body temperature variance over a 12-hour cycle. And you're going to want to monitor cytokine expression, especially if there's any sign of fever spikes. Use something like ibuprofen if you've got a non-toxic analog. We do not. Then you'd better get creative, Aaron said. Try mild anti-inflammatories from your plant-based compounds. Something that inhibits prostaglandin production. Norrell tapped a command into the console. We have a derivative from the Xel root. It is used for mild joint discomfort. Try that, Aaron said. Start small, watch for side effects. Hours passed. Norrell and two other researchers worked quietly beside Aaron as he reviewed each case chart, matching symptoms to what he remembered from a lifetime of seasonal colds. At one point he stopped. Wait, this one Thil, you said, you gave him a sedative after the synaptic spike? Yes. He became agitated. Aaron frowned. What kind of sedative? A neuroinhibitor. Standard dosage. Did you adjust for increased blood flow? No, Aaron turned. Then you probably overdosed him. Norrell looked alarmed. He is stable. Yeah, but you're damping half his brain function. You need to taper that down before he slips into synthetic stupor. Norrell immediately began recalibrating the dosage. As the shift drew to a close, Aaron leaned back, stretching his arms. You know, he said, I never thought I'd be giving virus management tips to aliens. Your contributions have been unconventional but informative, Norrell admitted. Back home, we'd call this patchwork medicine. Not pretty, but it gets the job done. That night, Aaron returned to his quarters to find a small package on his cot. Inside was a sealed container labeled in the Xaltheen script. A handwritten note translated into awkward but legible English was tucked beneath it. To Aaron Dells from the Joint Medical Team. In recognition of your adaptive problem-solving and resilience under microbial stress. Contents: sterilized Xel root tea blend. For your continued recovery. He sniffed the tea. It smelled faintly like licorice and moss. Not bad, he muttered, pouring hot water over it. The next day, Aaron entered the command deck to find Vierks in discussion with two other officers. They quieted as he approached. You've been assisting our medical team, Vierks said. They needed help. I had time. We reviewed the data. Your immune system adapted in ways we find difficult to model. Maybe, Aaron said. Or maybe I just got used to being sick and kept showing up anyway. And you believe that is normal? Where I'm from, it's necessary. Vierks was silent for a long time, then he turned to the others. Begin compiling a resilience protocol based on human immune patterns. I want a full simulation of cross-species viral impacts, including psychological tolerance thresholds. Aaron blinked. You're building a training program. Yes, Vierks said. We are calling it the Earth Resilience Index. Aaron chuckled. Good luck with that. You will assist. Of course I will, Aaron said, sipping his tea. But you're not gonna like the part about spicy food, sleep deprivation, and arguing with your boss through a sinus infection. By the third rotation following Aaron's surprise stint in alien fever triage, the ship's atmosphere had shifted in subtle but unmistakable ways. He was no longer trailed by quarantine drones. No one sanitized the air behind him. And when he stepped into the central mess chamber, still the only place on the vessel where both humans and Xaltheen could eat without issue, the silence that used to follow his arrival had been replaced by something stranger, cautious curiosity. Aaron sat down with a tray of rehydrated lentil stew, quietly grateful for something that resembled Earth food. Across the table hovered Thil, the researcher who'd briefly experienced hallucinations. His skin had a faint lavender tint now, apparently a side effect of the Xel root tea adaptation. You are consuming legumes, Thil observed. Aaron took a bite. Yup. They are known to cause gastrointestinal discomfort in over 60% of your species. Life's full of risks. Thil watched him chew, blinking slowly. May I ask a question related to human symptom management? Sure. During your rhinoviral infection, you did not engage in full-cycle bodily rest. Is this standard? Yeah, most people just push through it. You sleep a bit more, maybe drink fluids, but you still go to work or school. Or whatever. But your internal systems were compromised. Aaron shrugged. So's my morale when I miss a deadline. Phil tapped a thin stylus against the edge of his nutrient paste cube. "We are compiling a comparative resilience matrix. Vierks wants it completed before we leave Europa orbit. Let me guess. You're trying to quantify stubbornness. We are attempting to understand how your kind maintains functional output during physiological stress. Your data conflicts with our predictive models. That's probably because your models don't include spite as a motivational factor." Phil paused. "Spite? Yeah, like say you're sick but your supervisor once said you weren't essential, you show up anyway. Out of principle. And this improves performance? No, it usually makes everything worse, but it feels like a win." Phil made a note. "I see. Emotional defiance as a biological override." Exactly. Later that cycle, Aaron was called to the environmental systems bay, where one of the vent regulators had started pulsing in odd intervals. He arrived to find two engineers mid-argument in fast, clipped Xaltheen dialect. "They stopped when he entered. Which one of you broke it?" Aaron asked. Kylex gestured at the unit. "The regulator began emitting oscillating bursts. We attempted to recalibrate. It resisted." Aaron crouched to inspect it. "You reset the thermal limiter." "We did. Manually or system side?" "System side." "There's your problem." He popped open the panel and began disconnecting the circuit bridge. "Your system side reset doesn't clear accumulated heat drift. It just tells the software to pretend it's fine. You are suggesting the system lies to itself?" "No," Aaron said, tugging free a burnt connector. "I'm saying it's optimistic." Kylex leaned closer. "This component is compromised." "Yep." "Needs replacing." "We do not have a spare." Aaron glanced at the part, then stood. "You've got a spare power buffer in the drone bay that's got the same thermal threshold." "I'll retrofit it." "That is not an approved substitute. Neither is letting the vent system melt down." He returned 10 minutes later with the part and a strip of thermal tape from the human emergency kit. As he worked, Kylex watched silently. "You have many rules," Aaron said. "But not many backup plans. We prefer systems that do not fail. Earth builds systems assuming they will." Kylex shifted slightly. "This approach seems inefficient." Aaron snapped the last connector into place. "It is. But it keeps us alive when things go sideways." The regulator hummed back to life, steady now. That evening, Aaron was summoned to the observation lounge, where Vierk stood alone, staring out at Europa's ice-cracked surface. The lights were dimmed, and the only sound was the distant thrum of the ship's core. "You've made quite an impression," Vierk said without turning. "I wasn't trying to." Nevertheless, the medical division has finished compiling the Earth Resilience Index. Your input was instrumental. Aaron leaned against the frame of the viewport. "Glad I could help." "There is one final item," Vierk said. "You referred to your illness as common, yet your response to it was anything but." Aaron folded his arms. "That's the thing, it's not about the virus. It's about how we deal with it. We don't get the luxury of perfect systems. So we adapt, we grit through it. Sometimes we fail. Sometimes we MacGyver a solution out of aspirin and duct tape, but we keep going. You perform under conditions that would incapacitate us," Vierk said. "And you consider this normal?" Aaron nodded. "Yeah," Vierks turned. "We studied your data. Your species has endured extinction events, pandemics, environmental collapse, and yet you persist. We don't get a lot of choice. Perhaps, but you persist with humor, with stubbornness, with spite." Aaron laughed. "You talked to Phil." Vierks's head tilted slightly. "We do not yet understand how your emotional volatility contributes to survival, but it appears to be effective." Aaron looked out at the moon below. "It's messy. But it works." Vierk stepped forward and held out a small case. Inside was a translucent badge etched with alien script and a faint blue glow. "For your contributions, we offer honorary designation as Auxiliary Resilience Advisor to the Concorde." Aaron raised both eyebrows. "That's a mouthful." "It is ceremonial, but it includes access to our interspecies research channels." He took the badge. "Thanks, I'll try not to sneeze on it." Vierks blinked slowly. We have also begun developing a new training simulation for cross-species crews. Based on your case study, oh boy, we are calling it Protocol 47F, Human Cold Scenario. Aaron groaned. Please don't make people role-play my sinus infection. It is already in testing. He held up his hands. I'm flattered, slightly horrified. But flattered. As Vierks left, the viewport dimmed and the ship adjusted course. They were leaving Europa, mission complete. The Earth team would be dropped off at the Martian relay in a few days. Aaron stayed in the lounge, watching the stars shift. He hadn't planned on becoming a case study or a resilience advisor. He'd come to fix drone links and keep the power grid from frying. Instead, he'd accidentally taught an entire species the value of grit, improvisation, and refusing to sit still just because you were sick. He took a deep breath. The congestion was finally gone, and for the first time in weeks, no one flinched when he exhaled.